Well, we're on. Hello, I'm Ben. If you haven't been here before, I'm a prop maker. I have a studio in Dorset, and I make props and models in my little world. I make some artwork as well. Try and balance between sort of making artwork and making props for people. And I thought, just to keep kind of things going in here, what's kind of going on here. And if you haven't been here, I thought I'd give you a little bit of a little bit more about my process of kind of like how I compartmentalize what it is that I do. A side note, I did write this as a script, and I tried to read it as a script from an auto cue, and that didn't work. Absolutely terrible. So even though I knew the words, I was reading it and it was, let's just say, it wasn't very good. So my process. So I just thought I had a lot of time to kind of like just really sort of reevaluate and panic and kind of do all the kind of things you do when you start to reevaluate what you do. And I think just as part of kind of like what's going on around in the world and all sorts of kind of stuff that's happening, feeling a little bit useless, and feeling a little bit kind of not particularly that my artwork, I don't know, there was I suppose just that little bit of kind of fear of kind of, it feels quite frivolous when you sort of break it down and sort of quite sort of entitled to kind of just keep shouting about yourself. Oh gosh, I've changed the mic position, sorry. I should put it back under there, shouldn't I, really? So you can keep getting bashed. How about that? My beard is getting ridiculously long. Hides the mic though, isn't it? Chaos all around us, and then you've got me kind of going, oh no, I'm just going to make this, I'm going to make this crazy thing. And sort of feeling where does that sit in the world? Where does my... And I suppose moving as well, it's kind of really sort of started to really sort of get into kind of like all of the stuff that I have and all of the kind of bits and pieces and so much stuff that you start to kind of question all sorts of things really. And I suppose trying to kind of like put what it is that I do into context, I suppose it scared me a little bit and really sort of made me but I feel better in terms of getting back into here. I haven't had that project yet that kind of like goes, I'm bedded in. I've been sort of doing kind of workshop infrastructure for quite a while. A little bit bored of it now, but it's pretty much, the Death Star is pretty much there. With all the little bits and pieces, so bar the point of kind of actually sort of putting it into practice and actually being in here and working on a big job, or from my kind of work, big job, and so I suppose when that happens, things will start to kind of like change a little bit and go, actually that doesn't quite work, and that does. So anyway, is that I've had time to kind of like reevaluate and started to sort of question all that kind of stuff. So then I started to sort of ask myself, why do I do this? What's, come rain or shine, what makes me kind of want to do it, and what makes me keep coming back and doing it more and more and more. And I sort of started to kind of just whittle it down to kind of like, there's part of it it's just so ingrained in kind of who I am. And many years ago, I realized that I just have to kind of make things to kind of help me sort of settle my disposition, I suppose, just kind of really sort of keep me, mentally, it's part of my mental well-being, I suppose, is kind of, that's one of the things. And the other one is just I need to pretty much all the time I need to get these ideas, I need to get them out of my head and then move on to the next one. As I've sort of grown as an artist into this modern era, these are the things that, the ideas are all well and good when I was sort of starting, but sometimes I couldn't execute them in the way that my head, in the same way that a kid is drawing and doesn't have the skill set to kind of draw what's up here, and can get quite frustrated with the drawings that are coming out because their dexterity is not ready, and they're not. And it's the same with making and stuff. And I sort of, over the years, I come up with these ideas, and then how I want to execute them is not quite ready. So I have to. So they sort of get shelved a little bit, and then kind of almost wait for me to catch up to the idea. We're in such an amazing time, you know, beyond all the kind of absolute fucking shit that's going on around us. You know, it's oh, I was looking for that the other day. Yeah, there's so much rubbish going on, and it's so absolutely heartbreaking, and that's one of the reasons sort of for the kind of introspectiveness, because it was sort of, my works kind of can be quite frivolous. So sort of from a maker's perspective, you know, I'm in such a kind of a golden era in terms of, you know, wanting to kind of know how something's done. So it's literally at my fingertips, you know, combined with the institutional knowledge that I've built up over the years, and then with the sort of the power of kind of having, you know, so much information ready available, that the kind of the way that I can execute something quite quickly is sort of, I can download the information from the internet, you know, into my head and into my hands, and then sort of watch somebody doing it and be like, oh, okay, I understand that, and then kind of execute the idea how I want it to be done. So that's sort of that speed of kind of, that's amazing, absolutely amazing. That's the kind of the how, is in the actual mechanics of it in what I do. And then the creative idea tends to be sort of like the best way that I can sort of describe it is sort of walking into a corridor with like a narrow corridor with doors all the way down the sides, and I'll come in through one of the doors and I'll see the kind of idea at the end of the corridor. You know, it can be sort of quite out of focus and sort of quite dark, and sort of, you know, there's just a vague sort of shape of what the idea is. And as I get closer and as I sort of walk towards the idea, it starts to become kind of more tangible, and sort of I start to understand what it is and how I'm going to start to execute it. And then at that point, it sort of moves from the corridor into a sort of saying it out loud makes me, it feels like I'm quite mad sort of saying these things, but it sort of moves from the corridor into a sort of a greenhouse, and then from the greenhouse it sort of just starts to kind of like propagate and sort of starts to grow, and then I'll visit it and be able to sort of look at these ideas in my head. And that's when I start to kind of gather information, start to gather kind of like the hows, the what is it, where is it going, what's it for, in the sense that, what is it, a piece of artwork that I'm making, is it sort of just something that I kind of want to make, or is it, you know, there's all sort of like all of that kind of stuff that starts to sort of take shape. And these ideas don't tend to go away. They tend to just sit there and just, you know, not grow very fast. And I'll kind of, sometimes I'll proverbially go into the greenhouse and pick around, and things will cross-pollinate, and, you know, that idea has been sitting there for years, and it's like, oh, actually this idea and this idea, there you go, look at that, that's brilliant, wow, amazing. And then you sort of, you know, that will sort of start to sort of bring it into when they get to a point in the greenhouse, it's when they hit the workbench is when you start to, you know, that's when you start to kind of make it, and you sort of start to pull together, you know, the actual kind of physical items of kind of making it. There are other times, there are rare occasions, and they're like the holy grail of kind of ideas in that, going back to the corridor thing. Sometimes you sort of walk out, you know, into the corridor, and it's like you're at the very end, and it's just there. It's like it's all in it's everything, and that's rare. But, you know, it does occasionally happen, and that's when you sort of, those are the moments where I sort of, you know, feverishly sort of make something quite quickly and be like, right, okay, and all of us, you know, it's quite a storm of feverish activity. And so that's the sort of the kind of weird way of describing of how I kind of make things. That brings me to where does where does that come into it? And it rarely does. It rarely sort of influences the where and why and who's it for. Those two things, the who's it for a little bit, but the why, I don't tend to kind of like dwell on that. I try not to dwell on that, if at all, because sometimes I feel like that can kind of mar the sort of process, and can sort of almost make me feel like I stumble, because that's when I start to question like everything, and it becomes the frivolousness and the sort of, it can feel kind of flippant, and so I don't tend to sort of dwell on those things. If you sort of look at it from if you sort of extrapolate what it is that I'm actually doing, it's bonkers at times, but I'm very lucky, you know. So that's sort of, so the why doesn't, I try not to kind of dwell on the why, I suppose. One of the other bits that are kind of like, I suppose, with this kind of introspective kind of period, I was starting to sort of, what parts of it that I like. You know, I definitely like the making, I like the creation, and I do love the, I spend a lot of time in here alone, kind of just making things, and it's sort of how I operate in terms of, it's a solitude kind of existent, in the sense of, I need that space to kind of just be able to be tinkering and making, and I need that headspace to sort of just be in my own little world. But then there is a sort of the ego of me sort of comes out, and I do really enjoy the show. I love the show. It feels like, for me, as I've built up over the years, I've had a few shows, a few exhibitions, and I feel like, for me, that's one of the jigsaw pieces that makes me want to do it more and more, is kind of the show. Another one of the reasons why I'm feeling a little bit kind of unsure is I haven't exhibited for a while, and fingers crossed I'll have a show. I have all the pieces and all the sort of, again, going back to, and I'll keep harping on about the corridor and stuff and the greenhouse, but all of the pieces are sort of becoming real and a physical sort of point. And it's like finishing off all the little details that make it go from sort of just being quite an interesting thing to kind of something for me that's sort of trying to sort of actually satisfy my needs to kind of the show itself, the theatre of it, and the lights and the sounds and all that kind of stuff, and the feeling. I feel like I really sort of spend quite a lot of time trying to kind of work out how people are going to interact with the work, and you can't predict exactly how they're going to act, but you can sort of get a sense of things, and that's quite exciting, and that feeling is exciting. And then there's definitely the sort of, to the build up to the show, and then the actual show itself. I love it. It's brilliant. It feels great to kind of get the work out there, especially if I've been sitting on it for quite a while, and that interaction and that kind of that lovely creative interaction that you get with people is just amazing, and will open things up for me into a different direction, as in how people have interacted with the work, and what works with people, and what works as an object, and all of those kind of things. And that sits really so well with me telling stories, really. The bit that I really struggle with, and it's probably it's a story being told countless times, and it's partly my generational thing, being sort of a Gen Xer, and sort of the way that I've sort of come into kind of the digital world in terms of promotion. I think that's why I like the live thing, and all my work has always been sort of around that actual physical real world thing. And being an artist today, you can't get away from the fact that you need to do this. Part of the solution for me to kind of tackle the digital world, I've found this medium, as in talking to camera, it sits as well as it can do. So hopefully explain my work, and sort of show you my work, and sort of show you kind of my process, and sort of what I make here. And as I build up sort of more and more of these videos, sort of take you on the kind of the making journeys that I do. When I start to get really sort of into kind of like what I'm actually doing, sort of bring you along with the process, and sort of show you kind of what it takes, what's going on in my mind. It's starting to feel like my space, which is nice. So please follow along. I've got some other videos of me making some stuff. I make these little things called cups of calm. So that's from my old studio, and I've got all sorts of things that I've been making and sort of building up on. I've got all sorts of projects. I mean, I do stuff on graphics. I sort of do stickers, and I've been doing cards on my website. I've got t-shirts. So I've been sort of doing all of those things, and it feels like, as I said before, we're in a golden age of kind of being able to sort of, you know, have an idea and put it out there. And I suppose I need to get over the wanting to sort of really focus on the physical live bit, even though that's, for me, the physical live bit is, as I said, I really can't get over that, of how much of that part of it I do enjoy. I suppose it's just the ego of Ben blowing his own trumpet. Thanks for watching. If you got this far, thank you so much. You know, just subscribe if you have to, if you want to, if you have to. Yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon. Have a good day. Go and make something. Just go and do a drawing, or get some plasticine. That's easy, cheap. You can sit there and make something. Get some Lego. It's good. Make some bread. What else can you do? Yeah, just anyway, hope you're all right. Stay safe, and blessings all around. Thank you. Bye.